Horsemeat from South America. It is deemed to be particularly tasty and of high quality. The animals live a wonderful life for horses on vast pastures. This is how the horsemeat importers in the EU and Switzerland wax lyrical about the meat. In 2012, we conducted our first inspection of the slaughterhouses and assembly centres in Uruguay and Argentina which supply the horsemeat importers. What we found was animal cruelty. The Swiss VPI and the Belgian Meat Federation FEBEV promised improvements. Since then, we have returned every year, always hoping to see some improvement. Following our criticism, the FEBEV and other importers launched a project called Respectful Life in 2015 and entrusted the Catholic University of Leuven with making visits to slaughterhouses in Argentina and Uruguay. Participants actively engaged themselves in optimizing horse well-being. They consider it a priority and an integral part of their mission, as the horsemeat industry aims to deliver a product reflecting pride and respect of welfare principles. The horsemeat importers have known about the serious animal cruelty in Uruguay and Argentina since at least 2014. That's 4 years ago. In 2018, we again confronted the VPI and FEBEV with the findings of our investigations. Uruguay. People are out on the streets campaigning to end the torture of horses. In South America, horses are pets, family members. We want to know why so much misery is to be seen in the slaughterhouses. And again, we are confronted with the central lie of the importers that the origin of the horses is traceable. 23rd December 2018. A horse race in Argentina. The jockey comes out of a barn where the horses are being doped. They are given anabolics, anti-inflammatory drugs and painkillers. And what are they given? Just about anything. So that they run faster? So that they run faster and build up muscles. What's the name of the drug? They're anabolics, mostly. Can the horse be sent to the slaughterhouse when it comes from a race? How much time has to pass for the drug to be degraded? No, 15-20 days. You leave the horse 1 month on the pasture and that's it. And then the drug is gone? Of course, it is all eliminated through the urine. Meat from horses like these? In long-distance races, only every 3rd horse reaches the finish line. The exhausted animals receive electrolyte solution, painkillers and anti-inflammatories to be saved. Those that don't have the makings of a champion are sold, usually to the slaughterhouse, pumped full of drugs. This also applies to horses that cannot be used for rodeos anymore. Rodeo horses are only useful if they buck spectacularly and struggle against the rider. The sorted horses are loaded onto a truck by a slaughterhouse dealer. Horses of any origin are sold at auctions. When asked where they come from, the dealers answer with a shrug of the shoulders. The slaughterhouse is only interested in the last owner, that is, the slaughterhouse dealer. Mixed groups are moved into the auction ring. The handling is brutal. Fresh brand marks, still bleeding, serve to comply with the law requiring identification. In reality, unbranded horses are also presented and sold. This is illegal in Uruguay. In groups, they are moved into the auction ring. The slippery floor leads to falls. And to injuries. Among the biggest buyers today are the slaughterhouse dealers Ruben Badanca and Walter Peña. They sell horses to the slaughterhouses which supply the VPI and FEBEV. They buy around 80 horses, among them foals. The origin of the horses is unclear. Many of them have no brand marks. The loading the next morning is fast and ruthless. The horses frequently receive beatings on their heads. Injuries are irrelevant because the EU slaughterhouses take them all. Before dealer Bedanke delivers them to the slaughterhouse the next day, he drives to one of his pastures and unloads the horses. We ask ourselves why. The mixed and agitated herd is divided. One horse gets caught in the fence and falls. 30 horses, about half of the whole auction herd, are moved away from the rest of the group. Now we have our answer. For the first time in their lives, the horses are given an identity. The mandatory brand mark and ear tag. This is how the dealer feigns the traceability required by the EU and by the importers, VPI and FEBEV. On the same evening, the freshly branded horses are loaded. Their destination is the clay slaughterhouse near Montevideo. After 12 hours of transport in the overloaded cattle truck, the horses have to wait another 4 hours until they are finally unloaded. Clay accepts the horses. Horses that received new identities the day before. Horses of unknown origin. This is deception. In the assembly center of Clay, there are horses with and without ear tags, and we observe how the mandatory ear tags are removed from horses. We don't find out why. FEBEV requires, upon arrival at the plant, horses have to be properly identified and come with proper documentation. Approval for slaughter may only be granted if the documents, traceability and animal health are assessed and approved by the official vet. The identity fraud is systematic. FEBEV and VPI require. The maximum transport time for horse transports in non-EU countries is 12 hours. A separation of the horses must be made if they are hostile to each other. The transport vehicles must be designed, constructed, maintained, equipped and operated to avoid injury and suffering and ensure the safety of the transported animals. For years, we have been observing conditions that in no way fulfill these requirements. Inadequate cattle trucks that put horses at risk of injury are standard. Here, horses have to bend down underneath wooden beams. The loading doors of the cattle trucks are too low for horses. The frightened animals have to be moved through by force. Being driven through narrow doors, the horses frequently get stuck. Unloading at the Clay slaughterhouse, the same problem, an inadequate transport vehicle. The horses cannot walk out of the truck upright and calmly. They are beaten. Horses rear up. One is lying on the floor. The others trample on him. A worker comes with an electric prod to make him get up. The use of electric driving aids and sticks is prohibited, as well as the use of dogs. This scene is repeated day after day, no matter how large or small the truck is. At VPI FEBEV Slaughterhouse Sorel, things are no different. An inadequate, overloaded cattle truck with horses on board. Here too, workers strike the horses during unloading. Primitive metal grids inside the truck are intended to prevent horses from slipping. In reality, they put horses at risk of injury. Nevertheless, researchers from the Catholic University of Leuven claimed in their latest report, "We can state that in the light of the visits over the past 3 years and of the on-site observations, there's positive development in Argentina and Uruguay in the area of animal welfare during the collection, transport and slaughter of horses. We learn about announced audits in Uruguay and Argentina, and we are there, before, during and after the audits. The slaughterhouses make work difficult for us because they invest massively in view obstruction. Tarpaulins are mounted around the pens and slaughterhouses. The showpiece pens with shelter are still empty, as can be seen here at Landel Slaughterhouse, Argentina. The slaughterhouses prepare themselves. Weather protection is installed. But this is all optics because the new roofs are insufficient to offer all horses shelter from the weather. A seriously injured horse at the Clay slaughterhouse. He must not be seen during the audit. He is driven by a tractor to a hidden pasture and replaced by a small number of healthy horses. All traces of misery must be hidden. In the meantime, a delegation from the local authority advises the slaughterhouse operators on what to do to make the EU audit go smoothly. Overcrowded pens are emptied. On the day of an official audit in Argentina, there was a surprise for us. For the first time in all our years of investigation, we see a truck with a tarpaulin for weather protection. The auditors only get to see a pared-back operation. A small number of healthy horses are slaughtered. The pens are empty, as can be seen here at the Sorel slaughterhouse. This artificial state of affairs is criticized in the EU audit report. The auditors are shown, among other things, an amateurish shelter for weather protection. A few months after the audit, it looks like this. Shortly after the departure of the auditors, the pens are again overcrowded. The pens with the new roofs that were built for the audit are clearly empty. In the other pens, the very limited weather protection is far from sufficient. The consequence of a lack of weather protection is shown in these images, recorded a few months after the audit. All slaughterhouses and assembly centres are once again densely packed with horses. The sheltered showpiece pens remain empty. The horses are standing in deep mud. The horses once again show the signs we have been documenting for years. They look exhausted, emaciated and injured. Pregnant mares are also among them, like this one, who suffered a stress-induced miscarriage and did not receive any assistance. And the staff, who according to the VPI and FEBEV are trained, are back in animal cruelty mode. Here, a horse has fallen down in a raceway. 2 workers watch as another strikes the horses in the face with a rope. From an elevated position, water is sprayed into the horses' faces. They are beaten with a stick. The panic is increased by a worker carrying out noisy and sparking welding work. Dogs are used to round up the horses. On a pasture with barbed wire. Landau slaughterhouse in Argentina. Horses in distress receive no assistance. A white mare, seriously sick. She urinates while lying down. She is going to die without any assistance. We detect a small emaciated bay horse. He's fighting death. The only support he gets is from another horse that stays with him for hours. This white horse also remains alone until death comes as a release. Slaughterhouse Lamar, Argentina. It has been raining, no weather protection. The horses stand in the mud. A few find a halfway dry resting place. We stay with the horses. At night it gets cold and very humid. Most of all, we want to see if injured and emaciated horses are once again delivered to the slaughterhouses after the audits. And they are, in large numbers at all slaughterhouses observed, which supply the VPI and FEBEV. Instead of receiving assistance, the horses are left to suffer. We first saw the severely injured horse in the assembly centre of the Clay slaughterhouse 1 month ago. He was hidden during the EU audit. During our inspection round, we find a delicate young mare with a massive injury and inflammation. A stream of pus flows from a wound on the shoulder. The green pasture is no longer of any use to this horse. He is too weak to eat. He is going to die like many others, who are too emaciated for slaughter. But no money is spent on euthanasia. They are left to their own devices, until they die, like these 2 horses in an Argentinian assembly centre. Around the slaughterhouses and assembly centres in Uruguay and Argentina, we repeatedly find bones of dead horses. We look at the skulls. Bullet holes indicating emergency killing are not to be found. What we find are piles of bones, for example here at the Lamar slaughterhouse or at an assembly centre in Argentina. The Lamar slaughterhouse. For hours, this horse is left alone to suffer an agonizing death. This slaughterhouse has been a business partner of the importers VPI and FEBEV for many years. Both profiteers of this cruelly produced meat have known for years about the torture taking place in their partners' slaughterhouses. For just as long, they have claimed to be tackling the problems. Early in 2018, VPI President Joseph Patino asked for another year to end the animal cruelty. That time is up. Nothing was achieved. On the contrary, with criminal energy, the audits are being manipulated. Horses are still suffering, starving, and dying in the pens. The slaughterhouses and assembly centres in Argentina and Uruguay, from which the VPI and FEBEV purchased their horse meat, produce cruel meat for Swiss and EU plates, and sell it as healthy and traceable from animal-friendly production.